Hydra also do a nice range of floats, Simon, don't they?
Yep.
You know, just talk us through
So
the ones I've got here for you.
Okay, so the floats are made in Italy. All the flat floats are as well. This is a Pro 14, which has got quite a thick hollow tip in it, a strong carbon stem, and a traditional eye, but also a hole through the body, just for strength, so the line doesn't cut in through the paint as well. So that float I use generally for chopworm fishing on rivers.
Yeah, it'd be spot on for that.
On the Thames, if I've got a bait dropper in on the line with sort of strong tackle, looking for some bonus perch, that's the float I choose.
Yeah.
Got a nice tip, it can support a half a log worm.
Just right for worm, isn't it?
Yeah, fish like a 14 to low 14 or something with a decent elastic. That's really the situation where I use that float.
Yeah, we'd use that probably for tench on the ooze.
Yeah.
Just over the pads or even in the pads, you know, cut a hole and fish in the pads with them. That supports
it's
that
a nice
worm
float
nicely.
for that. It's just right for that. Balsa body. Yeah, so that's really the job for that Pro 14.
Lovely float.
That's a nice float. This float is called an Oato. See, it's a nice float. That's a bream float, still waters. Ostellato is a canal in Italy, some people might have heard of. There's been a couple of world championships there, which is probably 3.5 to 4 metres deep, and you're fishing for skimmers and bream, a lot of lift bites. So that shape lends itself well. Carbon stem, in theory, helps show lift bites because you don't have the weight of the wire in the float, and that's actually just has the hole through the body, doesn't have an eye. I actually put a little bit of silicone on the sort of thread it onto the tip.
Yeah.
Have a bit of silicone there, then through the body. It is a float for good conditions. It's not for windy.
No.
It's quite delicate. Just due to, I mean, that's a 2 grammer, so it looks big, but that's a gram. It's quite a delicate float, good conditions. You could use it somewhere like the Gloucester Canal, and also because it's got a plastic tip, solid plastic, you can lay a bit of line on the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's
you could use it on the bigger fen drains, then, like middle level and places like that.
Yeah, but the conditions have got to be good.
They've got to be, yeah.
For that float.
Maybe you wouldn't be able to use it on the middle level then.
Yeah, that's what I said. I used that float at Southend Farm the other day at 6 metres. I had 29 pounds between 2 lines, and I used it on a 6 metre line. It was actually windy that day, and the wind was coming straight at me, and it was all right, to be fair.
Yeah.
So it's a nice bream float. It's well made. It's a beautiful.
Yeah, they are well made.
Yeah. So that's that. Then we've got Pro 21, which is a sort of classic shape. That's got a hollow tip in it, a long carbon stem, and a traditional eye, balsa body. That's a great silverfish float.
Yeah, it looks
for the venues we have in this country. Just the right diameter tip, nice and easy to see, not too sensitive if you're fishing worm heads, red worms, maggots, casters over a bit of ground bait or pellets. So that's like a real nice, it's surprisingly stable. It fishes really well, that float. I think it's the long stem and the hollow tip. It's an easy float to fish with.
Yeah.
So either strung out with a bulk or double bulked. It's a nice float. I use that one quite a bit. I like that shape body. It's a bit like some of my squat floats as well. I've got that body shape.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's a lovely float. And the next one we've got here is called a Mincho.
Not Mincio.
Not Mincio.
No.
So that's a classic rugby ball shape, really. Plastic tip, carbon stem, traditional eye, balsa body. That's a float I used last year. It's like a general purpose float. So I used it on a canal called Spinadesco, fishing for these Caraccio. It was a canal that sometimes would flow a bit, sometimes was still. In Italy, they consider a carbon stem float more sensitive than a wire stem because there's less weight in the float.
Oh, right.
And so it's a good float also for flicking out past your tip and just general, roach fishing on rivers. Carbon's nice because the float won't flip over like wire does sometimes. So that's like a real nice general purpose float that you can use in quite a lot of silverfish situations, rivers, lakes and canals. Goes right down to small sizes. The smallest one we've got here is 0.75. It does go smaller than that.
Yeah, it does.
But it's a nice general purpose silverfish float.
Lovely.
It's nice. And then the last one, which I know is a very popular one,
Yeah, very much so.
is a Hydra Rapide, or Rapid. So this is like a pencil, sort of a squashed diamond pencil float, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
With a carbon stem. That's a glass tip, but a reasonably thickish one in terms of glass. Balsa body and a traditional eye. That one goes from is it 0.2 or 0.1 up to a gram. And there's a small one here.
Yeah, what's that?
0.2.
0.2, yeah.
So in the smaller sizes, that's a nice like far bank canal float, especially at March, running through, bit of hemp maybe.
See, people look at them and think, oh, that's bleak float, but that's so wrong, isn't it? There's so much more that you can do with
You
them.
could use it for bleak fishing if there was on the Wye, for example. If you was on a lot of bleak, you could use it for bleak. No reason. I've used them shallow fishing a few times. But it's a great float for flicking about on a long line on your pole or on the whip, especially.
Yeah.
It's got a good following, that float, to be fair. It's a steady, keep selling year after year.
Yeah, they are nice floats.
They fish well.
They are really popular, they are. Very much so.
The thing with small fish floats is it's important to have a little, it's almost like a sharp point to the body.
Right.
Because if you've got a bulk and 2 droppers, you drop it in, and if it doesn't trim up because you've got a bite on the drop, it shows up better than a round
makes
body
sort of sense.
float. You notice a lot of small fish floats have a point just where the bristle enters the body. Yeah. So if you're going on a whip at March, getting a bite of chuck, that's a lovely float to use. Doesn't tangle and
definitely not.
Comes out of the water smoothly when you strike.
Yeah, they are nice. Right?
It's a nice float, that.
So you say about whips.
Yeah.
These are a bit nice, aren't they?
Yeah. So the Hydra Floats.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We started
you talk about them, mate.
With the A911 whips, and it sort of transformed into this range. They're actually very similar whips. The graphics have changed and the material slightly. So there's like 2 ranges within a range on these whips. So this Queen starts at 2 metres, and then up to 4.5 metres is quite almost like a stiff tip action whip, which is for small fish. So you would use it for bleak fishing, use it if you were going to catch a lot of fish up to, say, you could probably swing like a 4 or 5 ounce roach on it, but really it's for swinging fish up to 3 ounces, I would say, 3-4 ounces.
Yeah.
So if you're on a number of fish, like I say, bleak fishing or roach fishing, people use them in Ireland. I know people that have bought them specifically for that, but that's quite a tippy small fish action. So that's a great whip.
So they go up from the 2 up in half metre.
Yeah,
don't
they do. 2.5, 3 onwards to 4.5.
And then when you get to the 4.5, we go over to the...
Yeah, so 5 metres onwards, although the whip has the same...
I mean, that's a 9. That's 9, the biggest
that's
one.
9 metre, that's the max it goes to. The whips change, they're softer. If you look at a 5 metre one of these and compare it with, any whips I've seen on the market, they're unbelievably light. Really, really what I would call like a nice whip. They're not for swinging pound roach and elasticating. They're like, if you like your whip fishing and you're going to catch again a net of roach or skimmers, or I've had what did I have, a chub out of the canal a few years ago at Christmas. I was just pleasure fishing on the 5 metre. I had a chub over 4 pound on 5.10 to an 09. One of these pre-tied actually. I had to run down the towpath after it. But I got it because it's got a soft action. Yeah. So there's there used to be quite a lot of whip fishing in Italy where they're catching chub. Yeah. So they wade out, fish with a 6 metre with a 4.14 float. A soft whip, you can cast a small float and sort of hook big fish on light line and use the whip.
I don't think people realise with a whip, they think because it's fixed that as soon as you hook a big fish, you're going to get broke. But that's so far from the truth.
Well,
it's like
it depends what hook length you got on.
Yeah, but even with light hook lengths, it's surprising what you can get out on the whip.
The thing is to keep the whip up. If you point the whip at the fish,
you've had it. Yeah, it's game over, especially with that chub.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine, he fishes for hybrids in Ireland on the whip, and he says you just got to keep pulling. Yeah. Not pull to snap the whip, but if you keep the pressure on, okay, you can get broken. I'm not saying you can't. But you've got more chance of getting a big fish in by trying to bully it rather than let it. If it dictates to you what's going on the whip, it's going to do it. You've got to try and bully
I think sometimes when you hook them on a whip, they don't know what's going on. I mean, often on use, you'll hook a tench, and if you're on a pole,
Yeah.
they scream out into the middle of the river.
Yeah.
But when you hook them on a whip,
Yeah.
they seem to like stay there
Yeah.
to say what's going on, and then it gives you a chance, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're the two. So they've got the same name. They're in the same range. But
Yeah.
from between 4.5 to 5 metres, they actually change quite a lot in action.
They sit lovely in the hand.
Yeah. No,
don't
the
they?
Italians know what they're doing.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's got quite a fine tip. Because there's a lot of
Yeah.
people do this differently. I mean, these are
Yeah.
beautiful fine tip.
A lot of people cut a bit off the tip. I generally don't.
No.
I like to leave them
Yeah.
as they are. But yeah, there's a few ways you can connect.
Yeah. How do you connect yours?
Well, the way I do it is, so generally I am fishing for small fish
Yeah.
on the whip, and one of the most important things is not to get your rig tangled around your tip while you're fishing, especially if you're bleak fishing. You don't want your line wrapping around. So the way, I think it depends a bit how you cast, but the way that suits me is I use 2 bits of silicone,
Yeah.
and so I'll get my main line, I'll put the fine silicone on first. This is going down towards the float, and then a thicker bit. So I'll put a 0.3 and a 0.5. So the 0.5 goes on first, then I'll do loads of little twizzles, come up to the tip, as many twizzles as I can get on over about sort of 6-8 inches, and then I'll put the bit of 0.3 on, and that will go down to my float.
So does that this end of it, does that last like I do similar, but I lasso behind it, but you don't?
No, so
is it just coming through?
it's just literally coming through.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so if I hook a big fish and I point the whip at it, it could
It'd
pull the
come
rig
off.
off.
Ah,
But-
right.
So that's why
Yeah,
I always try and keep that pressure, the whip up. But to be honest, I don't hook that many big fish on the whip. So, but I leave a tag here. So that with that setup and the way I cast, I don't get the line wrapping round while I'm
Right.
fishing. So
Right.
it suits me.
Definitely, yeah.
And the other thing is when I'm setting the whip up, so I'll do that and then I run the rig down, set it up. If I think, oh, you know what, I've made this a bit too short, the rig's
Yeah.
a bit too short, I want it longer, I can redo it and pull a bit of line through and
That's
get it
clever.
how I want.
Yeah, that's clever.
And also,
Yeah.
if I'm going bleak fishing, I like having the rig almost as long as the whip, bar 6 inches, say. That way the bleak comes to hand, and
Yeah.
I like the line slack between the tip and my hook while I'm unhooking.
Oh, right.
Right, so
Yeah, that's...
but if I was going to March and I thought, well, I might catch 20 pound roach here, I want a shorter line, I can do the thing in reverse. I can
course
pull
you
it
can.
through
Yeah.
and shorten my rig up by 6 inches, and you know, I might be practicing and think, oh, that's still a bit long. I can
Yeah.
adjust and get it how I want.
So you've got more versatility with that
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
how I do it. That's...
But there is potential for it pulling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, I don't hook many big fish on the whip, and the really important thing is I don't get any tangles around the tip while
No,
I'm fishing.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse. I mean, we sell we sell loads of the connectors, you know,
Yeah,
the Stomfos
personally,
connectors
that's-
to the end of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when they have them, they want it cut back.
Yeah, it
So
has to
you're
be.
losing.
Yeah.
You're losing. something
And the
all
thing is, the
time.
line,
not so
in my
much the length, the
experience,
action.
no, I find it a bit unsightly,
Yeah.
a bit fussy, and also I find that the line will catch behind it,
Yeah.
and the temptation is to carry on. It gets worse and worse.
Yeah. Once it's made a mark in
Yeah.
the line, it
keeps a
gonna
memory.
yeah.
It keeps doing it.
Do
So
it all the
that's-
time.
Another way of doing it is just to glue a bit of 0.3. If you can get that rubbery silicone that's a bit harder, glue a tiny like 5mm bit of that on the end, and behind it have a bit of say 0.7 silicone, and then you can just tie a loop in your rig, hook it
Yeah.
behind that silicone, pull the thicker bit forward that covers it.
Yeah.
That's a neat.
That's neat.
That's neat.
Yeah, not early that one.
Yeah,
that is neat.
That's probably the most popular way in Italy.
Really?
Yeah, so just super glue. So the far end of it is probably 3mm from the end of the tip. A little bit of. You can use normal silicone, but you know the stuff that comes with float sometimes. It's a bit like chinpo,
Yeah.
rusty, a bit
Yeah.
hard. If you can find that stuff, super glue that on, but first put on a bit of 0.5 or 0.75, about an inch long. Have that loose behind it. Then just loop your rig on as if you would do on a connector.
Yeah.
Pull that silicone forward.
Just covers the knot.
Yeah, that's popular. And,
Yeah.
the other way they do it, which I have tried, I didn't really get on with it, they can do that with a bit of 018.
Oh, right.
So they have a little shock leader,
Yeah.
because it's stiff,
Yeah.
to avoid,
So that won't tangle either.
and then they'll have a little maybe they'll tie a loop and trim off all the ends of it so there's a little knot in the end and hook their rig onto that.
Oh, right.
That's popular. That's
Yeah.
I do it the way
Yeah. Yeah.
I do it because it suits me. But there's probably talking at least 3 or 4 different ways.
Yeah. So when you make your rigs up, you have them bits of silicone ready on each rig, or do you just do it as you
just make your rigs up, put them on with a pole,
put them on,
and then with a pole anchor onto the winder.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the moment to use them, I
cut that off.
Because I put my rigs on the wrong way round.
Yeah, I think I've spoken to you about that before. Yeah.
So I'll set the whip up, put the hook on the rig, connect the rig to an elastic band down the far end, run it up the whip, cut it this much longer than the whip, and then do the silicone job and trim off the end and then adjust it to how I want.
But when you actually think about that, that is a much more efficient way of doing it.
It is.
Than unravelling it all.
Yeah, and
yeah.
So the funny story is, when I first started fishing in Italy, I went with a mate of mine called Max. This guy I met in Italy is my age, so we started going fishing together. Our girlfriends were friends and whatnot. So and we were on this river, and I started making a rig and putting it on the winder. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making me rig." He said, "No, you don't do it like that." And nobody does it the way we generally do it in Italy. They don't. They all do it the wrong way round, and for this reason. So if they're setting up a top four, they put the hook on, run it up the top four, connect it. All the extra line is still on the winder.
Yeah.
Not round your feet.
That's brilliant, really. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, so I make my rigs longer than I think. So if I make a set of these up, say Minchos, I'll make them up like, if it's like a 2 grammer, I'll make it on 5 metres of line, regardless. Yeah. Because I might use it in 6 months' time on the Thames.
When you need it.
Or I might use it next week on somewhere there's 3 foot deep, exaggerating a bit, and I can just chop it down.
And you haven't got all that line kicking about. And
no, it's a bit of a waste of line in the long term. I end up throwing away quite. But all my rigs, if I haven't used them, they've got the loop with the pole anchor on, and I can tell that they're new, and then I know that it doesn't matter where I go, there's enough line on the winder to cover the situation.
That's a great idea. I should do that.
You try it, yeah. It's all my pre-tied rigs that I sell are on the winder that way.
Yeah.
And people say, "Oh no, it's a long way round," but it isn't really.
No, it's not. No. Not when you think about it. It's much more efficient. Yeah. Oh, nice one.
Yeah.
Something else you want. Yeah. Good. Brilliant.